In this video, I'm going to show you how to start investing in stocks, whether you are a brand new beginner or someone who actually understands this just a little bit. This is going to be a shortened version of my hour and a half long videos that I've done here and here with over 8.5 million views and hundreds of thousands of views on the other one. Those are the long form ones to go to. If you're looking for a quick primer, this is going to be an excellent video, so stay tuned. So how to invest in stocks, a complete beginner's guide. So why should you even invest in stocks to begin with? So the whole idea is to grow your money over time, okay? So time in the market is greater than timing the market. So what that means for complete beginners is basically the longer you have your money in the market, historically, the better you've done. You don't have to time the market finding the biggest dips or selling the highest highs. As long as you are invested regularly and consistently in the market, you should see certain returns. Obviously, this is no guarantee of returns, but historically, the average annualized return of the S&P 500 since 1928 is basically 9.9%. So the reason this is important is because this maintains your purchasing power versus inflation. So if you've noticed when you go to Starbucks or Chipotle or go to Home Depot or any restaurant over the past few years, you're sitting there looking at the menu thinking to yourself, dude, this is so expensive. My pay hasn't gone up as much as these prices have gone up. So that's what investing in stocks helps you do. It helps you maintain your purchasing power and hopefully increase your purchasing power over time. And then finally, you make your money work for you. So think of your money as little soldiers. Every dollar is a little soldier or a little worker, and it helps create other soldiers or workers, and it increases your net worth. So step number one is to set clear investment goals. This is super important, you guys, because if you don't have these clear goals stated from the beginning, you're not going to know why you're even investing in the first place. So let's get super specific with time frames and then also specific with different criteria that we're looking for. So number one is establishing short, mid, and long-term goals. So if you look at the infographic on the right, you can see short-term is basically, this can be accomplished within a year. Midterm is 1 to 5 years. Long-term is 5 or more. Typically, I like to look at it as 10 or more. But when you set these goals, you don't want to say, hey, I'm going to just save for retirement. Well, what does that even mean? How much do you need to save, right? A much better goal would be, hey, I'm going to save $500,000 by age 60. That helps put things into perspective, and it helps you understand how much you actually need to put away to get to that number. 3, we briefly talked about, is setting your time frame. 4 is actually reviewing your finances. So how much can you realistically allocate, which we'll talk about later in this video. And then 5, you need to set your priorities for your goals. So although you may have short, mid, and long-term goals and probably many iterations of them, you need to prioritize these. So this could be saving for a down payment on a house. It could be saving for paying for a wedding. It could be retirement goals, which is obviously longer. So you need to establish short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, and then you need to prioritize each one and figure out which one is most important to you. So after you're done with step number 1, step number 2 is how much can you actually afford to invest? So we need to build a strong foundation here, and I'm actually of the camp of actually having an emergency fund and understanding your budget before you even invest 1 penny into stocks. So number 1 is starting with a budget. So this is understanding your income versus your expenses. It sounds very simple, but unless you track it diligently for at least 2 to 3 months, you're not really going to understand the number you have coming in versus the number you have going out. But once you do that, once you understand, hey, I do have a few $100s per month extra, I do have a few $1,000s per month extra, that's where you can go into step 1B and invest the difference, okay? So number 2 is having an emergency fund first. So I just talked about this. So an emergency fund is anywhere from 3 to 12 months of expenses. This is your foundation. So if you think of the pyramid, the base should be your emergency fund, okay? Because if something were to happen to you, you know that, hey, I can afford a blown tire, I can afford a blown transmission, I can still get to work, I can still do all these things because I have this insurance policy, aka an emergency fund, on myself. So the reason I say 3 to 12 months is because if you're just a single person, you don't have any dependents, 3 months is usually fine. You know, if you lose your job, you'll be good 3 months from now. 6 months, that's if you have like dependents or a kid. And then 12 months, in my personal opinion, is if your income is not stable. So say you're straight commission sales, say you're a small business owner, say you don't know where your next dollar is coming from. That's where 12 months of living expenses will give you complete peace of mind. Some people say that's too high, but trust me, once you've lived through a couple recessions like I have, it's not that audacious to think 12 months is too much. Number 3 is the cherry on top, and that's eliminating high interest rate debt. So anything higher than 6% in this environment is something that you should probably try and get rid of. The reason I say that is because you can probably make right around 5% in either a high yield savings account at the time of this recording or a money market account, for example. But anything higher than 6%, you are making a guaranteed risk-free, tax-free rate of return by just paying off that debt. So if you have a credit card with 20% interest and you pay that credit card off, you just made a guaranteed risk-free, tax-free rate of return of whatever that interest rate is. Make sense? Okay, so moving on to number 3. Step 3 is, what is your actual appetite for risk? What is your risk tolerance? So a lot of people don't really think about this before they get started investing. And the reason for that is because they're not used to seeing their portfolio go up a lot, go down a lot. They're used to seeing their money sitting in a savings account or a checking account, or maybe even literally in cash, depending on, what part of your investing journey you're in on right now. So the reason for this is because you need to establish your risk tolerance. So investors, we're compensated for the amount of risk we take on. So if I invest in my buddy's startup company that has a high chance of him failing, I need to be compensated a lot for that. Or if I invest in a startup company, some penny stocks, which I don't advise you do ever, but think of gambling or playing the lottery, high risk, high reward. You're not going to win most of the time, but when you do, you will make significant return. However, when you look at investing in like a blue chip stock or something a little bit more stable, which we're going to talk about later in this video, you need to be comfortable being compensated a little bit less for that. And then also, if you have money in a high yield savings account, then you can't expect a huge return because that's essentially risk free and it's insured, right? So what are you comfortable with? So number 2, once you've established that risk tolerance, is building your portfolio around that risk. So you can do this many different ways. So I'm a big proponent of index funds and ETFs. You'll see why later. But index funds, if you're not familiar with them, they just simply track an index. So say I want to track the S&P 500, which we talked about earlier in this video. I can simply just buy VOO, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 ticker symbol, and that'll track whatever the S&P 500 does. ETFs are exchange traded funds. So when you see something called an ETF, think of this as a basket of stocks. So I can own one share of an ETF, just like I can buy one share of Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, McDonald's, Nike, you name it. However, if I own one share of Nike, I'm only exposed to Nike. If I buy one share of an ETF, I can be exposed to hundreds, if not thousands, of different stocks. Think of it like a basket of stocks, and you own these just with having one share or even less, which is a fractional share, which we can talk about later. Next, you have large cap, mid cap, small cap. Basically, these are big established companies. These are companies that are experiencing growth. And then you have small cap companies, which are under a certain market cap. So when you think of market cap, think of the number of shares outstanding. So if a company has 10 shares and their stock is $4, the market cap of that company is $40, 10 times 4, right? So when you look at companies like Apple, you can multiply their shares by their market cap, and you can come up with the market cap number there. You have value versus growth. Value is typically seeking companies that are undervalued based on their fundamentals. And then you have growth, which is typically high-flying tech companies, healthcare companies, startups, things like that. And then you have different sectors you can invest in. You have consumer goods, you have technology, you have healthcare. You have a bunch of different sectors you can invest in. If you want to do some back testing, I highly recommend you visit portfoliovisualizer.com. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but you can back test a bunch of different stocks, index funds, ETFs, portfolios. You can give them certain weights, certain percentages. So if you're exposed to 10% Tesla, 5% Apple, 80% S&P 500, you can see historically what a portfolio like that has done. So the infographic I decided to use here is the Boglehead 3 fund portfolio. So this is basically just 3 ETFs. So you have Vanguard's total stock market index, which is ticker symbol VTI. That makes up 60% of this portfolio. You have 20% under BND, which is just the bond ETF. And then you have 20% VXUS, which is a total international stock market ETF. And there you go. You have a full portfolio just by buying these 3 funds, but you're essentially holding thousands of positions just with those 3 funds. Make sense? Okay, number 4 is choosing an investment account. As you can see in the infographic to the right here, you have so many different options, right? So let's talk about the different types of accounts. So let's start with retirement-specific accounts. So you can have employee ones, which is a 401k, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. This is typically private employer-sponsored. sponsored. So say, for example, you work for a private company. They say, hey, Marko, we offer this 401k. We can match X% of your salary up to a certain percentage, and it's essentially free money at that point if your company does do a match, right? You have a 403b, which are typically for nonprofits or schools, and then you have a 457, which is typically state or public employees, and then you have different retirement accounts called IRAs. These are individual retirement accounts. So you have a traditional one, you have a SEP IRA, I actually have a SEP, and then I also have a Roth. So without making the whole video about these different types of accounts, you can easily Google these and figure out the pros and cons of each. So number 2 under specific investment accounts is taxable brokerage accounts. So when you think of like a stock account or a brokerage account or a stock portfolio, you're typically thinking of an individual taxable brokerage account. So when your buddy comes up to you and says, hey, Marko, I opened up a Robinhood account, right? They've typically opened up a taxable brokerage account unless it is one of these retirement accounts, which we're not going to talk about. So a taxable brokerage account can be broken down into 3 things. You have individual, which is one person. You have joint, which could be shared by 2 or more. This could be with a spouse or significant other. And then you have managed, which is professionally managed. You can also do your kids with a custodial account. There's a bunch of different ways to skin a cat here. But for the most part, most people are going to be thinking or opening an individual taxable brokerage account. Even though I wouldn't do it in that order, I'd probably start with a Roth or a 401k first, get the match from your company, open up a Roth. This is tax advantage right here. This is after-tax money going into a Roth, and then you can finish it off with an individual in that order is my not financial advice. So step 4 is choosing an investment account continued. We have specialized goals. So basically these plans, they're for specialized goals such as educational savings, for example. So in my state, I live in the state of Ohio, we can open up a 529 plan, and the first $4,000 that we contribute to an educational 529 plan, that can be deducted from your taxable income, okay? So it's reducing your taxable income as long as you use it for educational purposes. There's now the Secure Act, which is outside the scope of this video, 2.0. If you don't use the funds in a 529 plan, you can actually roll them into a traditional Roth IRA. So number 2 is a health savings account. This is an HSA. This is tax deductible. This has many different benefits to it. Without getting into the weeds too much, I would look into this, especially if your employer offers it. If they don't, there's other options outside of employers for HSAs. I would look into that pretty quickly because this has a lot of different benefits to it. And then finally, you have trust and custodial accounts. This is a trustee. It manages this account for a third party. So when you're in New York City and you hear of a trust fund kid, this is typically where their money is coming from. It's coming from a trust. So we have so much more on the other side of this video, but before that, let's get into today's sponsor, Policy Genius. This video is obviously about constructing a sound stock portfolio, but stocks are just one part of your overall financial plan. If you think of stocks being as the offensive part of your portfolio, then you need to think about the defensive part as well. That's where having a proper life insurance plan on your side comes into play. Make sure life insurance is part of your financial planning this year. Start shopping now with Policy Genius to find the right policy to protect your family. If something were to happen to you, your family can cover expenses while getting back on their feet. My wife and I did just that using Policy Genius. Getting started with Policy Genius is simple. We filled out our information on the website, talked to their licensed agent, we answered all of her questions, and she got back to us with quotes that made a lot of sense financially and also covered our needs. Policy Genius knows how valuable your time is. Their technology makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Their licensed, award-winning agents can help you find the best fit for your needs. They work for you, not the insurance companies. That means they don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Policy Genius is for parents, caregivers, and anyone else who has people who depend on them. They simplify the process of getting life insurance so you can protect the people you love. No wonder they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Your family deserves peace of mind. A life insurance policy through Policy Genius can give it to them. Head to policygenius.com/whiteboardfinance or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Okay, step number 5, how do we actually fund these accounts? Okay, I know this sounds very simple if you've done it before, but for people who are complete beginners, how do we actually fund these things? So step number 1 is we're going to choose a broker and type of account from step number 4. So remember, we talked about picking an individual taxable brokerage. Maybe it's a Roth IRA, maybe it's a SEP IRA, maybe it's a 401k. Let's just assume for this example, we're opening up an individual taxable brokerage account. So we're going to pick the account type. We just said we're doing individual. Step number 3 is we're going to actually open the account. So this is no different than signing up for an app on your phone. It's very quick. It should take maybe 5 to 15 minutes tops. Typically what they ask you, just for security purposes, and KYC. KYC just stands for Know Your Customer. They're going to ask for your social security number, typically an address, maybe employment information, maybe household income. They're trying to get a better idea of the demographics of the people using their platform. Just little questions like that. Again, this should take maybe 5 to 15 minutes tops. Next, you're going to link a bank account. So typically these transfers are made electronically. So this is how you actually add funds to the brokerage account to be able to buy stocks and fund this portfolio. So say, for example, you have an account with Wells Fargo, PNC, you name it, Chase, whatever, it doesn't matter, Bank of America. So you have your checking or savings account, let's call it Capital One. I'm going to link Capital One with, let's call it Robinhood in this case, or Schwab, or whoever you want to use, M1 Finance. Those two accounts talk to each other. You would then log into the actual brokerage app and say, hey, I want to transfer $1,000 and I want to take it from my Capital One account, put it in my Schwab account, right? And then, a few days later, or even immediately in some cases, you can start trading. So those funds get transferred in step 5. Step 6 is what I would recommend if you really want to automate your finances, and that's setting up automated transfers. So once you figure out in step 1 or 2 what your budget is and what your excess amount is, all you have to do is then figure out, okay, I know that every month I have right around $500 extra that I can afford to invest in the stock market, right? $6,000 a year, 500 times 12 months, $6,000 a year. So what I would do is I would actually set up an automated transfer for something along the lines of, $300, $400, $500 a month. And that way you're paying your stock account right away. So this whole process is automated. So you don't even see the money in your checking account. You can't even buy the new Jordans, the new, leather jacket, the new stupid, gadget, or whatever you want to spend your money on. It's automatically being taken out of your checking or savings account or whatever account you link to. You're not even seeing that money, and it's going straight into your brokerage. Makes sense? And then at step 7 of step 5, you start investing. So pretty simple. Now you're probably asking yourself, hey, Marko, what do I even invest in? Okay, do I pick stocks? Am I buying penny stocks? Am I listening to the guy in the locker room at the rec center giving me stock tips? No, this is what you're going to do. This is not financial advice. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a finance degree. I haven't been investing for 18 years. Don't listen to me. This is not financial advice. The majority of you will benefit the most by buying and holding index funds and ETFs. Let me repeat that. The majority of you, because you're not professional stock pickers, you're not finance professionals, you're not research analysts, you don't have an Ivy League degree, okay? You didn't get a 4.6 at Cornell University. You don't work on Wall Street. You don't do this 80 to 100 hours a week like investment bankers do. The majority of you will benefit the most by buying and holding index funds and ETFs. You are not smarter than Wall Street. You are not Warren Buffett, okay? So if you want to research a little bit further, these are some ticker symbols that I personally hold. VTI, Total Stock Market Index Fund by Vanguard. This is owning 4,000 plus companies all at once in one share. VOO, S&P 500. AVUV, this is small cap value. VXUS, Total International, and then BND is a total bond fund. If you don't want to go that route and you do think you're smarter than you are, you may get lucky. That's fine. Please, by all means, and I would dedicate maybe 10% of your portfolio and pick whatever makes you happy, right? But for the majority of it, I would still check out index funds and ETFs. However, if you do want to go down the individual stock route, you have blue chips. We talked about this. They're large, well-established. They're financially sound. They've been around for a while. You have dividend stocks. This is regular income. These are typically mature companies because they don't really need to innovate as much anymore. They already have a solid footing in the marketplace, so they're able to pay excess profits in the form of a dividend. That's just like saying, hey, thank you, Mr. Investor. I'm Philip Morris, the tobacco company. We made a killing off cigarettes this year. Here's a little bit of a dividend. Thanks for buying our stock and supporting cigarettes. Growth, higher risk, higher reward. These are typically tech, healthcare, startup companies. We talked about this. Defensive, these are usually recession-proof or recession-resistant. Sorry, proof is probably not the best word here. Recession-resistant is the better word. These are typically utilities. People always need power. Consumer goods, people always need toilet paper, that kind of stuff, Procter & Gamble. And then number 6 is ETFs. These are indices, and baskets of stocks, which we talked about. Again, remember, let's take VTI, for example. If I own 1 share of VTI or even a fractional share of VTI, I now have exposure to 4,000 plus companies, okay? And yes, they are weighted by market cap, so you are going to get top-heavy results. So there's different options to kind of mitigate that, but just for the sake of this example, I would check out these ticker symbols here. So step number 7, this is shameless self-promotion, but it's free, and this is just another resource that I provided. I've taken literally 100 plus hours to make this. So this is basically my millennial financial freedom roadmap. Hint, even if you're not a millennial, I just called it that. You don't need to be a millennial. This applies to literally everyone. So basically what we help you do is set smart financial goals, build an investing focused budget, discover your own investment style with your risk tolerance, and then get you to finally start investing without the guesswork. This is 100% free. It's an email course. The link will be in the description below. All you do is give your email address, and it gets you into a day-by-day lesson for a total of 5 lessons. So again, took me 100 plus hours to make, absolutely free. But if you want to actually pay for something, this is my private university. It's a school. It's a community of about 150 plus people now. Unbelievable community. Super proud of what we've built. We have 4 different professors in there: real estate, stocks, chartered financial analyst that can help you with portfolio construction. We can't tell you what to buy, but we can help you with understanding what you own, what you were thinking about owning, and then also personal finance with budgeting. So if you want to get 20% off that, just use the code STOCKS20. And then finally, I just want to finish this video with my thoughts. So stocks are just a piece of your overall financial net worth, okay? So when you think of like the food pyramid and you want to build your base, think of that as an emergency fund. Then you can layer on different things. Or the analogy that I love to make is think of your net worth as a pie, and each slice of that pie is just a different asset class. So once you understand, let's just say you have, for easy numbers, you have a net worth of $100,000, right? And you know you want to keep 35% in real estate. So you know that at all times, you should have about $35,000 invested in real estate, right? 35% of $100,000, 35 grand. If you want 50% in stocks, then you know you should always have right around $50,000 invested in stocks. Precious metals, Bitcoin, whatever you want to include in your pie. It could be collectible cars, it could be Pokemon cards, it could be whatever floats your boat. Just keep that as a percentage of a slice and be happy if that slice were to go to 1,000,000% of your portfolio. That way you have to actually sell some and take some profits. Or it could go to 0, but you can still sleep well at night because it's not such a big slice to where you're losing sleep over that slice, right? So if 99% of my portfolio was in penny stocks and those went to 0, how would I be okay with that? How would I react to that kind of a downturn? So all I'm trying to say is think of a pizza, think of a pie, make each asset class a slice of your pie, weigh it properly, and rebalance accordingly. That's all I want to say. Check out the email course in the link below. Check out WhiteBoard Finance University. Thank you so much for watching. Share this video and have a prosperous day. My pie is 99% Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. If I didn't have a wife or kids, it would be. Peace.